Hi, everyone. Welcome to At Home Artist Project. I'm Jacqueline, and I'll be your host this week. We're so glad to have you all here. We're a collective of artists cultivating new work in the virtual space while at home. If you're interested in participating in supporting the work you see here tonight, please consider donating what you can by using the buttons below the video here and on our support page. You can purchase a ticket on Eventbrite or support us through PayPal. Your generous donations are split between the artists you see here tonight, our operating costs, and the Billie Holiday Theater in Brooklyn. Please feel free to leave comments and questions for our artists and the administrative team in the teal comment box below, and we'll be happy to address these after the show during a live Q&A with our talent. So tonight you're joining us for At Home Artist Palette. And what we're doing this week is we asked 4 different artists to choose a medium of their liking and to record themselves making a piece using this medium and using a time lapse to do so that we could see progress of their work. We also asked that they be here to join us for a discussion tonight, and so we're hoping to unfold a little bit about their inspiration and how they arrived at this work. If you have been with us for a little while, you know that this is our second rendition of At Home Artist Palette. The first version was a singular compilation video of the work of several artists all put together, and we asked that they record themselves speaking about their work as their piece was playing. And so while we really enjoyed having that video and all of their work compiled, we were missing the live element, and we wanted to speak to those artists and find out where their inspiration came from. And so the hope tonight is to hopefully find some new discoveries and maybe amongst all of us here kind of arrive at the idea that maybe we're all using the same kinds of inspiration during this time of the pandemic, or maybe we have more in common than we think. Maybe we're using a lot of different modes of inspiration to arrive where we currently are and in viewing the works that you're going to see here tonight. So without further ado, let's introduce all of us here on this call. Coming to you tonight, we've got Kari Hostler in Los Angeles. We've got April Hickman, who is in New Haven, Connecticut. We've got BinhAn, who is coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Alex is our streaming engineer. Thanks so much for helping us tonight, Alex. We're also going to be featuring the work of artist Mikee Layaoen. She couldn't be with us here tonight. She's from Ontario, Canada, but we're so glad that she submitted her video and a little bit about her. And again, I'm Jacqueline. Thank you so much for being here. So now that we've introduced our project and our artists, we'll go ahead and get started. The first artist that we'll be featuring tonight is Kari. Thanks for being here tonight, Kari. You want to say hi? And
hi.
We'll go ahead and scoot on over to her video. Enjoy her work. All right. I hope you all enjoyed Kari's piece. Kari, thank you so much for sharing with us. It's definitely something provocative. There's a lot going on there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you arrived here?
Yeah, I've been painting with oil and with that kind of style a lot since the end of my college years. So from like 2015 till now, discovered that oil is just a really good medium to convey really deep and sometimes disturbing emotions. Not necessarily always disturbing, but that um, it's a really good way to vent out negative emotions that you have. And during a time where everything is so uncertain and terrifying and you have little to no control over the things you can do, it gave me the idea, the feeling of what makes me, or like what is the most vulnerable vision in my mind. And I don't like being very graphic, but I like to have gestures. And I found that hands kind of signify a lot of thoughts that people have. You can see a lot of a person's personality through hands. And a lot of a person's grief can be shown through like the way they position their hands. And if they're very vulnerable, you can reveal your wrists to the very, you know, potentially dangerous parts of your body that can be harmed so much. And so I felt recently like I've been very vulnerable because I feel like everything's just constant. There's like no security anymore, which obviously there are methods of control and moments of peace and stuff. But I found that this idea pops into my head where I just feel it's like the image of helplessness and that darkness that you feel from helplessness, and being able to put on a painting really does help like take it away. But I thought that that was a really good articulation of my emotions at like my lowest level during this crazy time. And I wanted to emphasize the vulnerability through the hand because I think again that really does communicate the idea of what a person's going through.
Wow, that was such an elaborate explanation. Thank you. I really like the idea that our hands say a lot about us. I know I personally speak with my hands a lot. So that's just one example of
Yeah.
how that kind of shows through in our gestures. But I like the idea that we're looking at a different part of our body for emotion other than our facial expressions. And I think you really captured the distress in that motion and in those gestures really eloquently. So
Thank you.
really, really pretty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything to add? Any questions for Kari?
Yeah, I have a question. So when you're doing a piece like this that is so vulnerable, do you how do you know like you're done?
How do I know my what? I'm sorry, you cut out for a second.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? I think my sound's a little bit delayed, but I was saying when you're doing a piece like this that's like really close to you emotionally, how do you know when you're finished with the piece? How do you it's time to put down the paintbrush?
So personally, I know when I'm done with any piece of art when I hit the point where I think to myself, if I go any further, it's just going to mess it up. So I stop at that point, even if I don't think I'm done. I feel like if I'm going to take away from it, then that's when I stop. And sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong, but I've mostly been right because just like my gut instinct has told me, okay, I think you should stop now because you've added enough of yourself onto this. And yeah, and that's pretty much how I know.
Art can be
That's
kind
awesome.
of get us feeling a whole lot
Yeah.
sometimes, especially now. This is a difficult time, and I think it's absolutely understandable to let that show through. And I myself am kind of a visual artist, and I think it's really cathartic to be able to get all of this out. And
Mhm.
I don't know what sometimes
Absolutely.
when you're just like teeming with so much to say and feel, it is hard to be like, okay, is this a stopping point? Am I
Yeah.
done? But
Yeah.
I like what you said about the question of whether or not it would take away from what you're seeing and the progress
Mhm.
that you're putting down if you were to add any more. So Thank you for that. Very insightful.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Kari. That was
Welcome.
really nice. We're going to move on to our second artist now. Her name is Mikee Layaoen, and she couldn't be with us here tonight, but she has a really beautiful piece, and she sent a really nice kind of intro about herself, explaining where she is and kind of answering the questions that we've been talking about. So we'll go ahead and show you Mikee's piece now. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, my name is Mikee Layaoen and I am from Ontario, Canada. The piece that you are seeing here is called Rest. It was drawn on an app called Procreate, and this piece was inspired by the highs and lows of quarantine. During quarantine, I've had time for reflection, trying out new activities, and continuing to do the things that I enjoy doing. I've also been focusing on rekindling and deepening relationships with my family and friends. The time I have now has been spent on healing my internal landscape, and I wanted to portray that in this drawing. Enjoy and take care. Hi, it's Mikee. I hope you're all doing well. I couldn't make it to the live stream today, so I'll be sharing my background with you through this video instead. Art is a hobby of mine, and the earliest memory I have of getting into art was when I was a little kid and I saw my cousin's drawing. At first I started with coloring, and eventually as I got older, I started to draw my own things. I would say that during the pandemic, it's definitely given me a lot more time to create, and I've been drawing inspiration for many things. Usually they stem from my imagination, but they also come from conversations that I've had with people, books that I've read, or places that I've visited. Sometimes I will get art block, so that's when I'll search up art challenges online, or just take a break knowing that I'll find inspiration eventually. So that's me. Feel free to reach out to me to connect, and take care. Bye!
Okay, I hope you enjoyed Mikee's piece. I really enjoyed seeing something in the digital realm, since that's kind of what we're working with. I myself have a lot of trouble using that medium, but I think she did a really beautiful job, and I really enjoyed what she had to say about healing her internal landscape. That's kind of what we've been talking about, the theme so far for tonight. And her illustration to me felt very gentle, and it was in grayscale, so it felt maybe a little, I guess, colder, but those little like nooks she was creating also looked like places that I wanted to curl up and read a book. I don't know if anyone else felt that. And I also like what she had to say about sometimes just taking a break when you have a little bit of a block. I know I certainly experience that. I'm sure everyone here does, especially with the circumstances we've got right now. But I think she made some really good points. Did anyone want to comment on her work? Join in on that.
Yeah, I think it's really like, it's not just, it does feel a little bit cold because it's great. It feels like very of the time right now with how we might feel helpless, but like the best that we can do is try to find solace in what we have and like the people we care about, and kind of find the joys in where we are now. And so when I look at her piece, it makes me feel like the human condition is like strong enough to persevere, and like even in this like kind of dark world, like, you know, dig holes that we can like kind of cuddle into and still find happiness in that.
Yeah, I like what.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Go ahead, April. Yeah.
I was just gonna just come off what you were saying, that like when I was looking at this, I actually really like responded um, in a positive way. Like I know it like looks really dark, but it's like so cozy and like really makes you feel like you're um, at home and like snuggled up and like protected, you know. And, like, and I really enjoyed that about this. And it was nice looking, like watching her do the piece on Procreate. So you can see all the things building up on top of each other. It's really cool.
I think even with it being a process piece, it just made me, it really resonated to the idea of how much is changing around you. But the thing that stays the most solid is the space that you create for yourself and safety from everything that's changing outside. And I think that even if it's unintentional, it's still a really, valuable idea. And it, I kind of went the opposite. I do think it's really positive, but at the same time, I tend to struggle with feeling a little claustrophobic having to be inside, because I love going outside and being among everyone, as I'm sure most people are. So the idea of that pressure is a little kind of stressful just looking at it. But at the same time, I think she really did find a good way to make those two little spaces and this very heavy weight of darkness, your home. And I think that's what people need to do in order to make this whole crazy world work without going crazy.
I think that's absolutely it. I think so much of adapting to what is the new normal now is learning to make your space the most comfortable place it can be, and learning all of the things that you can do in your space and all the things you can add to your space, and maybe seeing your space in a way that you hadn't seen it before, because you're spending so much time there. But at the end of the day, maybe that's a good thing, and we're all gaining a little more comfort in the surroundings that perhaps we take for granted. Although I know I certainly am ready to go outside, but thankfully we have pieces like Mikee's to remind us that we can still find home and find comfort, even when we're being held inside for so long. Great. Thank you guys for that discussion. Very nice. So thanks to Mikee. Thank you for submitting that to us this evening. We're going to go and move on to our third artist, which is April Hickman. April, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I really like that we are kind of getting back to our roots here. We've got some good old-fashioned, like theatrical costume design, it looks like, going on, which is, I think, so exciting to see. One of my favorite things to look at, definitely. And also a kind of a nice reminder of that really finely crafted kind of artwork that is usually happening out in the world. And I'm so glad that we could bring a little piece of that here tonight. Would you like to tell us about it?
So yes, I am a costume designer. So most of the work I do is illustration, like a fashion plate or a costume rendering. And I really love the 1950s silhouette. I think it's really beautiful with the padded out hips, and it's just so fun to draw those shapes and those curves. And I love drawing people. So I thought I would do just like a little theater rendering, just because I miss theater so much. And I like like so many of us, like we just want to be in the same room together. And this just reminds me of like time when hopefully we will be doing that once again, and when I was doing it before. So
absolutely, yes. Thank you so much for bringing a little piece of that into this space tonight. I definitely miss being in a room in a theater with a bunch of people. I'm sure many artists, many audiences are feeling that right now. And it was so nice to be reminded of the really fine craft work that happens when theater's happening, and how it's just another very articulate art form. Thank you. And also, I was so impressed by your ability to draw the correct proportions. I think proportions are very hard. I'm sure as visual artists can agree, getting like forearms and fingers correct is just so difficult to me, I think. And I actually had a question. Do you use any form of like a visual guide, or do you kind of have these like burned into your memory at this point?
This one I actually found. I have a whole Pinterest board of like beautiful silhouettes that I want to draw, and so that is from a photograph from the 1950s. I think it was like your part when I'm drawing like a body, I want to have reference. If the clothes that go on top of it are completely different than the reference picture, and I always have to draw the like full body beneath the outfit. So like I'll draw a complete person and then erase all that and then put the clothes on top.
Okay, good to know. I'm sorry, I think you cut out a little bit there, but from what I gathered, it's that you have a collection of images that you have the desire to draw and draw inspiration from. And I think it's a really smart approach to draw the body underneath all of that fabric, because that seems like the most realistic way to make sure that all of it's laying correctly. So does anyone else have any questions for April?
Yeah, so I was wondering, because since costume design is like so character driven, if like while you were drawing this, even if you didn't have like a script to work off of, if you like kind of started formulating like what this character was and like created a world around her, you know?
Definitely. I mean, I do that for this, but I also do that with like people on the street, like everyone who you're walking by, everyone you see is like has their own like story that they're going through. Like they're the main character in their own musical. So I think that but definitely when you're drawing something like this, you're like, oh, I wonder like where she's going and like what she's looking at. So yeah, I think I would do that. I do that all the time.
I think that's what makes it fun, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I think we definitely place those stories on people. I know I do when I'm walking past them. I think it makes it more interesting. So
Yeah.
understandable. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we place a lot of stories on our work. And even just drawing like landscapes or objects or like what we've seen so far already, it also kind of follows that there's a little narrative behind it and a little story feeding us this inspiration and where this visual is coming from. I personally like story-driven work. I think that's a theme that we're sensing here. So yeah, it's nice to see it coming through in so many different forms, like the human form. Okay, awesome. Thank you, April. So we're going to move on to our fourth and final artist for the evening, which is BinhAn Nguyen. And she's got a lovely piece for us here. And we'll go ahead and show that to you now. Thank you so much, BinhAn. Wow, I can't wait to hear about this piece. I am not sure what's going on, but I really like the idea of this butterfly. Please tell us more.
Yeah, so in itself, it's like we're eating a butterfly as if it's a steak, and the idea came from just like I was watching this show on Netflix, and it was like about this girl who was really enamored by fairy tales, but she ended up being like a children's book author. But she, as a child, would tear the wings off of butterflies, and the show is about like her finding a way to empathize with people, and like it was just very, that image to me was just very interesting to have, like the symbol of a butterfly that's like so innately innocent be kind of ripped up and torn by a child who is also like like when we think of children, think of like innately innocent, and so that kind of just like snowballed me into kind of thinking about like how else we have been like kind of seeing butterflies, and how else we like have been as humans have been like digesting the nature around us, I guess. And so then it like turned into this thing, and like the image itself is I wanted to feel like this person, like who she would be as if she grew up, and like would she end up eating butterflies or whatever, and kind of this like dark fog. Uh, she's like emerging from this dark fog, or kind of like being encompassed by it. So, and like how like her innocence as a child, how like people would see her as a child, like tearing this butterfly and putting their own expectations onto her, and kind of like maybe seeing her as like an evil person, and then her kind of growing up to becoming that person,
Wow. Okay. Yeah, sorry, did you have anything else to add?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I like don't know if I like gave a great description of what I was saying, but yeah.
Okay, so talk about story-driven art. That's definitely an example. And you said that the person this is based on, she grew up to be a children's book author or a children's book illustrator?
Yeah, she grew up to be a children's book author, and like it's definitely like it wasn't like a documentary or anything. But the premise of the story was that she is a children's book author who can't feel emotions, and when she like writes about her like the morals, and because like fairy tales are supposed to be about morals and stuff, and the way that she kind of writes her stories, she like flips the morals on its side, and so instead of being like you should aspire to be the princess, she's like you should aspire to be the witch in the story. So and like she's like very jaded in it.
Wow. Okay. That's a very layered piece of art. I really like what you said about the juxtaposition of this like very violent image of like ripping and eating against like something so delicate like a butterfly, and also the comparison of the innocence of a child to like also the kind of innocent seeming image of a butterfly. We think of something very gentle, very pure, something that wouldn't do a lot of harm. And yeah, even just thinking about those two things destroying each other feels very contradictory, but nonetheless a great place for inspiration. And it's definitely like a very striking visual, the idea of eating a butterfly, just because it's two images that make a lot of sense in your head separately. Like, okay, I'm cutting a steak, or I'm like, this is a butterfly, but putting them together definitely flips it on its head. And so it was very jarring, but very interesting to see them in one place. I personally really enjoyed what you did with your background. It looked like you used some sort of like drippy water kind of element. Was this piece in acrylic?
It is an acrylic, yeah. And so I am a scenic designer, and I feel most comfortable doing like sculptural pieces, and recently have been kind of delving into the more like 2D space. But the paints that I have around me is acrylic, and then I am taught to use watercolor, and so in school, and so like for me, it's a very comfortable place to kind of delve into in between there.
Okay, I really enjoy that you found the middle ground between those two things, and it looks like you did it very comfortably and seamlessly. Really pretty. Does anyone have a conversation to add to BinhAn's piece?
Yeah, was there, besides the story, a kind of artist that influenced you at all? No, I am like interested in a more like in the surreal artist, but
Yeah.
I like I said, I kind of just felt comfortable like picking up a paintbrush at all,
Yeah.
and so not exactly like the image in my mind kind of usually when I do things, especially when it's like not for a show, it's like there's an image that is like stuck in my mind and I can't get it out, and so I do it.
Yeah.
And so kind of this image got stuck in my mind, and then
Right.
would you argue this is more to how, or your art piece speaks more to how you feel we treat, we digest and eat and consume nature, or more towards how, because it is really layered. My brain is still sifting through it, and it's the whole idea of being jaded really comes through, because I just get the vibe that like whoever or whatever is consuming it is like, I don't care. And that feeling of don't care comes through, but then that can also transfer over to the idea of us, we don't care in the consumption of nature. But I'm just curious what it is more for you. Is it more about, a direct kind of outcry towards how we consume nature, or more just towards our emotional, just, what's the word? Like the not caring. There's a specific word for it, but I'm blanking. Apathy. Thank you. Being apathetic. Our innate nature to sometimes be really apathetic towards really valuable things. I think really for me it's like the second, the latter of what you said. Being like, apathetic. Yeah, and okay. Like how just like the world that we kind of grow up in can very easily lend us into being apathetic and kind of feeling like we are the more important species and the more important like beings because we have this intellectual thought and stuff, and but the fact that we can destroy things like as beautiful as butterflies is very, I don't know, it makes me feel it's like our hubris in that it is like a very dangerous thing that we can do, but also the reason that we have been able to, create the stories that we created and like created like such a beautiful world is also because of that ability for us to like analyze and move forward with things. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else is getting this. It could just be me, but it does communicate a very Francisco Goya atmosphere, just the darkness of like, this is very troublesome and you have to look at it. That very black painting. I'm not saying it's as like kind of disturbing as that, but it does have an aspect of like, oh boy, there's something wrong and we got to pay attention to it.
Thank you for that very specific, but I think very appropriate reference of Goya to I guess catch anyone up. Goya was a painter who often did very dramatic paintings of often slightly disturbing, maybe gory kind of imagery, very striking. But I think the important part about his work was that it stopped and really captured you and made you look at what was going on. So impressive in its own way. Mm-hmm. As has this conversation been. Thank you guys so much for all of this engagement. I have really enjoyed being able to delve into all of this and have what feels like a very substantial conversation about where all of you are coming from and how we're all doing this right now and today, and even how it's relating back to other other elements in our world right now. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all right. So then with that said, we will go ahead and keep this conversation going with a Q&A session from our viewers. So let's see what everyone has had to say about your beautiful artwork. All right. So going all the way to the bottom, Knives wants to know, what's your go-to medium? We'll go ahead and throw this to the room. Any special preferences, anyone?
Oil paint is the absolute best in my opinion, because although it takes a year to dry, the malleability of the texture, the colors, and also you just like feel every time your brush hits the canvas or the paper or the wall or anything, you just like feel your art coming out. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that's just me being hypersensitive to how I feel in the moment, but I definitely love the way oil comes onto canvas, and I kind of like the way it smells, but that's not the best thing in the world, so don't do that.
I would say you're a little crazy, but that's
Oh, I know.
I usually use my iPad. For the most part, nowadays I use Procreate to do things. I use a like blue drafting pencil on just like whatever like printer paper. Then over my blue line with a regular pencil. And I like just the line work. I don't really like to paint it because I feel like it ruins it. But if I do use paint, it's probably acrylic.
All right. Thank you, April. BinhAn, I know you talked about acrylic, and you've usually got some sculptural elements around you.
Yeah, I think I don't really know if I have like a go-to medium more than that. Like, I am broke, and so I just use things around me. And so like we have a bunch of cardboard in my living room that like I have big plans to make into like a thing at one point, you know. So I like a lot of like found objects, mixed media type things, and kind of seeing what you can create from what's around you.
Okay, nice. Thank you all so much for those answers. Perhaps debatable. I don't recommend smelling oil paints, but you know.
Okay, I don't do it on purpose. It's the result of painting, and then you can feel it. It's like, oh, that's a nice little bit of flavor to painting.
It's a hazard. It's a hazard of the job. I think we've all experienced that. We'll get just a couple more questions in here before we wrap up for the evening. Toners asks, are there any other artists that you've seen do something interesting during quarantine?
I feel like it's funny, at the beginning of quarantine, I was like, I'm going to take this time, like, I got out of school where it was like art every single day. And I was like, I'm going to learn something new. Like, because but I think that like every artist was like yearning after a while to like do some kind of work, and just like anything that like came to mind, you're like, I have to put it on the paper, I have to like collect all the cardboard boxes to like make this thing. And especially now towards like with Hamilton coming out, I feel like people are like really missing that kind of entertainment, especially my background in theater, like we're all just like missing being in the room together. So yeah, I mean, everyone I think is doing so many cool creative things, and there's so much more ability for artists to reach out to one another because we're not as busy as we usually are, which is really great.
Yeah, there isn't anything very not in LA. I have a friend who specifically during when the riots were happening, she reached out to a bunch of people and were asking all of us to join her and a ton of people to go around and paint over all of the plywood that they put on the windows, because all of these shopkeepers were stressing out about their windows being broken. So they put plywood all over these shops. And so all over LA, there's just plywood. And so all these artists had an idea. It's not during the pandemic, but it's kind of like hitting at the same time where everyone has the time to be able to go out and they're painting murals all over the walls and all over the grounds and everything, and just making everything beautiful for such a dark time.
It's kind of wonderful how circumstance breeds necessity, isn't it? And how all of these things are being born out of what's around us and what's happening, and the surroundings and how they're changing, like plywood walls. But I think it's, as dark as maybe the reason for that is, I'm part of me is really glad that we're able to take that and turn it into something really nice, and that we're also able to let artists and people who are maybe not doing a whole lot right now use their skills and their talents to bring a little bit of color to what's happening right now. I think that was really nice. Thank you for sharing. So we'll do just a couple more questions. Let's see. Someone wants to know, how long does it usually take you to complete your pieces? Open. I don't know.
It depends. Upwards of forever if I decide that I never want to finish it, and sometimes it will take me maybe 4 hours just of direct painting and nothing else. But it really depends on what you're creating, I think.
I agree. Like, I think this piece took me like 3 days to do, and kind of starting regularly every day too. And then, like, when you do a show, it's like the process of the show. So kind of, like, does depend on like what you're doing and like the size of what you're doing too.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that play into that.
Oh, sorry. It usually takes me about, I'm not sure. Well, if I'm designing a whole show, I mean, it could take, at school, we had to do, full shows in a week. So I guess in a week, but that week was actually just like the night before. Don't tell anybody. So maybe like an evening, 8 hours to do a whole show, to do a musical, I guess.
Again, kind of that element of circumstance breeding necessity, right? Yeah. Okay. I think we've all been there.
We've all been there.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is nice to know that right now we actually have a little more time to take on things, and maybe more than we previously have, and to really pour ourselves into that, which is absolutely what all of you have done here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We had some great audience participation, and sorry we won't be able to get to all of these questions tonight, but thank you so much for participating. This full video will be up on our YouTube page in a short amount of time, and we welcome your comments and questions there. These artists will have access to that page and can answer them then if you're really dying to know. Their contact information will also be located on that YouTube page. So if you'd like to continue this conversation with them, you absolutely can. I'm sure they'd be happy to. They've done such a great job sharing tonight. So we will go ahead and wrap up for the evening. Thank you guys so much for sharing all of this with us. Thank you to our viewers, to our audience members who have stuck with us, and for being here. It's so appreciated. Don't forget that if you'd like to support the artists you see here, and you'd also like to donate to the Billie Holiday Theater, which is where part of our proceeds are going to this week, to please donate and use the support buttons that you see beneath the video tonight. You can also visit our support page. We use PayPal and Eventbrite. So thank you so much for your support there. Please don't forget that we're donating to the Billie Holiday Theater. We've got an important cause going this week, I think. And also, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share. We are on the social media channels that you saw at the end of that clip. Please follow us there, and we'll be happy to fill you in on upcoming projects. We've got some interesting things coming down the pipe, I think. Of course, we're always looking for new ways, new ideas, new artists to bring on, new discussions to have, and things to talk about. So if you like to collaborate on projects, if you've got any ideas you'd like to share, you're a playwright, dancer, a fine artist, a musician, a designer, so on, please, we'd love to hear from you. You can also find us on our contact page, and you'll be able to reach us through Gmail there as well. Thank you guys all so much again for joining us this week at Home Artist Project. It's been a pleasure talking to you all, and I hope you all have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.